Push, push now. Good, keep pushing, you're doing great.
The fluorescent hospital lights flickered above Amara's head as another contraction tore through her body. She gripped the metal bed rail, knuckles bleaching white, sweat streaming down her temples. The pain was nothing compared to the terror coursing through her veins. "Push," the midwife commanded, her voice distant, muffled by the roaring in Amara's ears. She pushed. God, she pushed with everything she had left. 20 years old and utterly alone in this sterile room that smelled of antiseptic and fear. Her phone lay on the side table, screen dark. 7 missed calls to her husband. 7 times he'd chosen not to answer. "One more, Mama. One more big push." Amara screamed and then silence. The kind that makes your heart stop. Then a cry, small, angry, alive. "It's a boy," the midwife said, but her voice had changed. Gone flat, professional mask slipping. Amara collapsed back against the pillows, chest heaving. "Let me see him. Please let me." The midwife brought the baby to her chest, and Amara's world tilted on its axis. The child in her arms had golden beige skin, delicate almond-shaped eyes that would darken with time, and straight black hair plastered to his tiny skull. Beautiful, perfect, and absolutely, unmistakably Asian. The hospital room door slammed open. Her husband, Kojo, stood in the doorway, reeking of beer and cigarette smoke. His eyes were bloodshot, his work shirt stained. He'd finally shown up. "About damn time you." His words died in his throat as his gaze landed on the baby. Amara watched his face transform. Confusion, then comprehension, then pure volcanic rage. "What the fuck is that?" "Kojo, please." He crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbing her jaw with one hand, forcing her to look at him. The midwife stepped back, uncertain. "What the fuck is that, Amara? You think I'm stupid? You think I'm blind?" "I can explain." "Explain what? That you've been whoring around, that this thing isn't mine." He released her face and grabbed the baby's blanket, yanking it back to stare at the infant. "Look at it, look at it." The baby began to wail. Amara's mind raced backward, 9 months into the past. The conference center where she'd worked as a cleaner. The private event on the top floor she wasn't supposed to enter. The man with silver hair and ink-covered arms who'd found her crying in an empty hallway after Kojo had screamed at her on the phone for forgetting to deposit his paycheck. "You're bleeding," he'd said in accented English, gesturing to her split lip. She'd lied. "I fell." He'd smiled like he knew every false word. "I don't believe you." That man had been older, 60, she'd guessed, though he'd moved with the grace of someone decades younger. Tattoos snaked up his neck, disappeared into his collar. Both ears glinted with small silver hoops. He'd looked dangerous and beautiful and nothing like the men in her world. He'd taken her to his hotel suite, poured her expensive whiskey, let her talk until the words ran dry. And then, she'd never expected consequences. He was 60. She was young and reckless and so desperately lonely. She'd assumed men that age couldn't. But here was the proof, screaming in her arms. "I should kill you both right here," Kojo snarled, and Amara saw it in his eyes. He meant it. The midwife finally found her voice. "Sir, you need to leave. I'm calling security." "Shut up," Kojo pointed at Amara, finger trembling with rage. "You've been living in my house, eating my food, spending my money while carrying another man's bastard." "Your money?" Amara's voice cracked. "I work 3 jobs, Kojo, 3. You haven't paid rent in 4 months. I've been." His hand cracked across her face. The baby's cries intensified. The midwife ran from the room, shouting for help. Kojo leaned down, his breath hot and rancid against her cheek. "You're dead, both of you. You understand me. Dead." He stormed out, leaving Amara trembling, tasting blood, the baby wailing against her chest. She didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every sound in the hallway made her flinch. Every shadow beneath the door sent her heart into her throat. The hospital had moved her to a private room for her safety, but what safety was there? Kojo had friends, cousins, brothers who'd do anything he asked. At 2:47 a.m., she finally heard it. Kojo's voice outside her door, arguing with someone. That's my wife. You can't keep me from my wife. Sir, visiting hours are over. You need to leave. I said she's my wife. Amara pulled the baby closer, her whole body shaking. She reached for her phone, but who would she call? Her mother was gone. Her father had disowned her when she married Kojo. She had no one. Nothing. The voices faded. Kojo retreating but not leaving. Never leaving, he'd wait, he'd plan, and then. The window exploded inward. Glass shattered across the floor, glittering like diamonds under the fluorescent lights. Amara screamed, throwing herself over the baby's bassinet as a figure dressed entirely in black dropped through the opening with inhuman grace. Then another and another. 3 men, faces covered, tactical gear that looked military grade. One of them pressed a finger to where his lips would be beneath the mask. Silence. The door burst open, a nurse, drawn by the sound of breaking glass, and one of the masked men caught her before she could scream, a gloved hand over her mouth, a whispered word in her ear that made her eyes go wide. She nodded frantically and he released her. She fled without looking back. The tallest of the 3 approached Amara's bed. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The baby whimpered softly against her chest. The man reached into his jacket and Amara braced for a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a phone, screen already lit with a photograph. Her photograph. Taken 9 months ago, at the conference center. She was laughing in it, really laughing, something she couldn't remember doing since. And standing beside her, his hand barely visible at the edge of the frame, was. No, Amara whispered. The man's voice was heavily accented, Korean, she realized. Di-young sent us. He knows about the baby. He knows about your husband's threats. We're here to take you somewhere safe. I don't understand. How did he? He's been watching, since the beginning. He knew there might be consequences to your time together. The man glanced at the baby and something softened in his visible eyes. He's been waiting for you, both of you. I'm not going anywhere with you. You broke into a hospital, you. Another masked man approached the door, pressed his ear against it, then made a sharp gesture. Time's up. The tall one looked at Amara and his voice dropped, became urgent. Your husband is in the stairwell with 2 other men. They're armed. They're coming to this room. In approximately 90 seconds, they will kill you and the child. You have a choice, trust me or die here. As if summoning his words into reality, Kojo's voice echoed from somewhere down the hall. I don't care about your protocols. That's my wife and that thing she's holding. Get out of my way or I'll go through you. The sound of a scuffle, a body hitting a wall. 60 seconds. Amara looked at the baby in her arms. His eyes were closed now, peaceful, trusting, innocent. He had no idea the world wanted him dead for the simple crime of existing. Quickly, the masked man said, already moving, pulling the IV from her arm with practiced efficiency. She didn't argue, couldn't. She let them bundle her and the baby in blankets, let them lift her as if she weighed nothing. The window was already fully cleared of glass, a rope secured to something above. Wait, Amara gasped as one of the men clipped a harness around her waist, secured the baby against her chest with expert hands. I can't climb, I just gave birth, You don't have to climb, just hold on. Hold him tight and don't let go. The door to her room shook, someone ramming it. The lock wouldn't hold much longer. Gio, the tall man shouted. And then she was falling backward out the window, rope burning through a descender device, the ground rushing up to meet her. She didn't scream, couldn't risk it, not with the baby, just squeezed her eyes shut and held on like he'd said. The descent took 4 seconds. It felt like 4 years. Strong hands caught her at the bottom, unclipped the harness, rushed her toward a black van idling with its side door open. She caught a glimpse of the hospital above, her window, the rope, and Kojo's face appearing in the opening. His roar of rage cut short as someone yanked him backward. Then she was inside the van, the door slamming shut, the vehicle already moving before she could catch her breath. Amara sat on the floor of the moving van, back pressed against the cold metal wall, the baby somehow still asleep in her arms. Two of the masked men sat across from her. Guns visible now, eyes on the windows. The third drove, taking turns so sharp she had to brace herself to keep from sliding. The tall one, who'd shown her the photograph, removed his mask. He was young, maybe 30, handsome in a severe way with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. "My name is Min Jun. I'm head of security for Young Kang." "Kang," Amara repeated numbly. "That's his last name." "Yes, you really didn't know much about him, did you?" She shook her head. "He didn't tell me, I didn't ask, it was just one night." One night that created an heir to one of Seoul's most powerful organizations. Min Jun's expression was unreadable. Young has no other children, no family left. When you disappeared after that night, he tried to find you. When he finally did, you were already married, already pregnant. He was watching me. The violation of it should have made her angry. Instead, she felt oddly protected. He watches everything that matters to him, and you mattered from the moment you told him about your life, about the man who hits you and takes your money and makes you work 3 jobs while he does nothing. Min Jun's jaw tightened. Young doesn't tolerate men who abuse women. He was planning to deal with your husband. Then the pregnancy complicated things. How did he know it was his? Min Jun almost smiled. When you're as wealthy as Young, you can afford to have hospital records accessed, DNA testing before birth. He's known for 3 months that the child was his. He's been preparing for this moment. The van made another sharp turn, throwing Amara against the wall. The baby stirred but didn't wake. She marveled at that, this tiny person who'd been born into chaos and somehow still found peace. "Where are we going?" "Airport, private jet waiting. You'll be in Seoul by morning." "I don't have a passport, neither does the baby." "Taken care of." "My things." "Unnecessary. Everything you could need is already prepared." Amara's head spun. "I don't understand. Why go through all this? I'm nobody, the baby is. I mean, yes, he's Young's son, but—" "You're the mother of his child," Min Jun interrupted, and his tone suggested this explained everything. "In Young's world, that makes you untouchable, sacred. No one threatens what belongs to him. No one." "Belongs to him." The words should have terrified her. Instead, exhaustion crashed over Amara like a wave. When was the last time anyone had claimed her as theirs? When had anyone ever fought for her, protected her? Kojo had promised forever, then spent 2 years making her regret she'd ever been born. "What about my husband?" she asked quietly. Min Jun's expression went cold. "He's being dealt with. He won't follow you, I promise you that." She should have felt guilt, should have protested. Instead, relief flooded through her so intensely she nearly sobbed. The van slowed, turned into what looked like a private airfield. Amara saw the plane waiting, sleek and white with a logo she didn't recognize. Stairs already deployed. "Can you walk?" Min Jun asked. Her body screamed in protest at the thought, but she nodded. "I can try." He helped her out of the van, his grip firm but gentle. The night air was cool against her skin, carrying the scent of jet fuel and distant rain. Each step toward the plane felt surreal, like she was watching someone else's life unfold. At the top of the stairs, a woman in an elegant navy suit waited. She was older, maybe 50, with kind eyes and graying hair pulled into a neat bun. "Miss Amara," she said in careful English. "My name is Haewon. I'll be caring for you and the baby during the flight. Please come inside." The plane's interior was obscene in its luxury. Cream leather seats, polished wood accents, soft lighting that didn't assault her exhausted eyes. Haewon guided her to a seat that reclined almost flat, helped her settle the baby into a bassinet that appeared to be custom-made, complete with restraints for takeoff. "Rest," Haewon said softly. "You're safe now, everything is handled." As the plane's engines roared to life, Amara stared out the window at the city lights beginning to fade beneath them. Everything she'd known was down there. The apartment where Kojo had screamed at her. The jobs where she'd worked herself to exhaustion. The life that had been slowly killing her. And somewhere in Seoul, a man with silver hair and tattooed arms was waiting. She'd escaped one cage. The real question was what kind of cage she was flying into. The plane touched down in Seoul 14 hours later, and Amara woke to find the baby nursing hungrily, her body responding to his needs even while her mind had been lost to sleep. Haewon appeared with warm towels, clean clothes, designer labels Amara recognized from magazines she couldn't afford, and a gentle insistence that she shower before they disembarked. The plane's bathroom was larger than her bedroom back home. Amara stood under water hot enough to scald, watching blood and hospital smell and terror swirl down the drain. When she emerged, Haewon had dressed the baby in a tiny outfit that probably cost more than Amara used to make in a month. "He's beautiful," Haewon said, and there was genuine warmth in her voice. "You did well, Mama." "I didn't have a choice," Amara whispered. "We always have choices. You chose to protect him, that's what matters." Another car waited on the tarmac, this one a sleek black sedan with windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. Minjun opened the door, and Amara hesitated. "Is he in there?" "No, Di-young is at the penthouse. He wants you to rest first, recover. He'll see you tomorrow." Tomorrow. The word felt both too soon and impossibly far away. The drive through Seoul should have been fascinating. Her first time in Asia, the neon signs in Hangul, the crush of humanity even at dawn. But Amara couldn't focus on anything except the baby in her arms and the thundering of her heart. The car pulled up to a building that seemed to scrape the sky itself, all glass and steel and intimidating architecture. A private elevator required a key card to access. It rose so fast Amara's ears popped. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. Amara stepped out and forgot how to breathe. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the entire space, offering a view of Seoul that looked like something from a movie. The sun was rising, painting the city in golds and pinks. Inside, everything was monochrome elegance. White marble floors, black leather furniture, abstract art that probably cost more than her entire existence. Haewon appeared at her elbow, no longer in the navy suit but comfortable clothes that suggested she lived here. "Miss Amara, let me show you to your rooms. Plural. You have the entire second level." "The entire." Mr. Kang wanted to ensure you had space, privacy. "The nursery is already set up, but there's also a bassinet in your bedroom if you prefer to keep him close. Medical staff will come tomorrow to check on you both. For tonight, rest, eat, recover." Amara followed her to a spiral staircase, then down a hallway that belonged in an architectural magazine. The nursery made her stop in her tracks. It was perfect. Not gaudy, not overdone, just perfect. A crib that looked hand-carved, a changing table stocked with every conceivable supply, a rocking chair positioned near the window, soft toys in muted colors, a mobile with stars and moons that probably cost more than. She had to stop comparing things to her old life. That life was gone. "Your room is through here," Haewon said, opening a connecting door. The bedroom was enormous. King-sized bed with linens so soft they looked like they'd dissolve under touch. Another wall of windows, these with automatic shades already lowering to block the rising sun. An attached bathroom with a tub large enough to swim in. And the closet. "I took the liberty of selecting some items in your size," Haewon said, opening the door to reveal racks of clothing. Casual wear, formal dresses, shoes lined up like soldiers. "If anything doesn't fit or isn't to your taste, simply let me know and I'll have it replaced." Amara sank onto the edge of the bed, suddenly dizzy. "This is too much. I can't. I don't deserve." "Mr. Kang believes otherwise." Haewon's voice was firm but not unkind. "You're the mother of his child. That means you're under his protection, his care, and his particular form of generosity." "What does that mean, his particular form?" Haewon hesitated, choosing words carefully. Di-young is a complex man. He can be extraordinarily kind to those he claims as his, but he's also possessive, controlling. This penthouse has 7 floors. You may access the second and third floors freely. The gym, the library, the kitchen, the garden terrace. The other floors require permission. Permission, Amara repeated. You mean I'm a prisoner? You're protected, there's a difference. Is there? Haewon met her eyes. Your husband is currently in a hospital with both legs broken. His cousins who were with him that night have left the country and won't be returning. Your old apartment has been cleared out. Your personal belongings are in storage if you want them. Kojo's name has been flagged at every international airport, every embassy. He can't follow you here, can't hurt you. Di-young made sure of it. Amara's stomach twisted. He broke his legs. Minjun did. Di-young simply ordered it. Haewon's expression didn't change. You're thinking that makes him a monster. Perhaps it does. But he's a monster who ensures that people who harm women under his protection face consequences. Your husband raised his hand to you, stole your money, threatened your life and the life of your child. Did he deserve less? The baby made a soft sound, drawing both their attention. Amara looked down at him, this perfect, innocent thing that Kojo had wanted to kill. No, she whispered, he deserved worse. Then we understand each other. Haewon moved toward the door. I'll be in the kitchen if you need anything. There's a phone on your nightstand. Just press 0 and I'll answer. Try to sleep. Tomorrow will be significant. When the door closed, Amara was alone with her thoughts, and the baby in a terror so vast it threatened to swallow her whole. She left one violent man for another. Except Di-young's violence wasn't pointed at her. It was pointed for her. That should have been comforting. So why did she feel like she'd just been wrapped in chains made of silk? Amara woke to the baby's cries and realized with a start that sunlight was streaming through gaps in the shades. She'd slept, actually slept, for what felt like hours. Her body ached in new ways, the flight, the birth, the sheer emotional exhaustion. But she managed to change the baby, feed him, and dress herself in clothes she found laid out on a chair. Simple black pants, a soft gray sweater. Someone had been in the room while she slept. The thought should have unnerved her more than it did. She found the kitchen on the 3rd floor, following the smell of coffee and something baking. Haewon stood at a massive stove, preparing what looked like traditional Korean breakfast. You're awake, good. Are you hungry? Amara's stomach answered for her, growling so loudly Haewon laughed. Sit, eat. The doctor will be here in an hour to examine you and the baby. The food was incredible, far better than Amara had eaten in years. She was halfway through her second helping when she heard it. Footsteps on the stairs, measured, unhurried, the confident stride of someone who owned everything around him. Haewon straightened almost imperceptibly. He's early. Amara's heart climbed into her throat. She clutched her chopsticks like a weapon, eyes fixed on the doorway. Di-young Kang walked into the kitchen, and Amara's memory hadn't done him justice. He was 60 but looked 45 at most. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the fluid grace of a dancer or a fighter. His hair was pure silver, styled back from a face that was all sharp angles and harder edges. Tattoos climbed his neck. She could see the tail of a dragon disappearing beneath his black collar. Both ears glinted with small silver hoops. He wore a suit that probably cost more than a car, tailored so perfectly it looked painted on. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart, dark, intense, and fixed on her with a focus that felt physical. Amara, he said, and his voice was exactly as she remembered, deep, accented, the kind of voice that could command armies or whisper secrets. She couldn't speak, couldn't move, could barely breathe. His gaze shifted to the bassinet beside her chair, where the baby slept, and something in his expression cracked. Just for a moment, the dangerous mobster disappeared and left behind a man seeing his son for the first time. "May I?" he asked, and the politeness of it felt absurd given that he owned everything including possibly her. Amara nodded. Di-young crossed the kitchen, knelt beside the bassinet with a grace that defied his age, and stared at the sleeping infant. His hand hovered over the baby's head, not quite touching, as if afraid he might break something so small. He has your nose, Di-young said softly, and my mother's eyes. She died when I was young. I thought I'd never see that particular shade of brown again. Amara found her voice. What's his name? That's for you to decide. He's your son. He's our son. Di-young looked up at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her want to look away. She wouldn't give him that. Our son, he repeated, tasting the words. Yes, I suppose he is. He stood all business again. The doctor will examine you both shortly. After that, we need to talk about arrangements, about the future, about the cage I'm living in. His eyebrow rose. Haewon told you about the floor restrictions. She told me I'm protected, that I need permission to access parts of my own home. It's not your home, it's mine. You're a guest. Guests can leave. Can they? Di-young moved closer, and Amara forced herself not to lean back. Tell me, Amara, if I put you on a plane right now, sent you back to your city, gave you money to start over, what would you do? I'd rebuild, find work, raise my son. Your husband is in a hospital, but hospitals discharge patients. His family is angry. His pride is wounded. How long do you think you'd last before they found you? Before they decided that the whore who embarrassed Kojo needed to be taught a lesson? His voice never rose, never hardened, but the words cut like glass. Your son would be collateral damage, unfortunate but necessary. Amara's hands shook. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to make you understand reality. You have two choices. Stay here under my protection, where you and the baby want for nothing and fear no one. Or leave and spend the rest of your short life looking over your shoulder. That's not a choice, that's coercion. Yes, he didn't even pretend otherwise. I'm very good at coercion. It's how I've survived 60 years in a world that eats the weak. And what do you want from me in exchange for this protection? Di-young stepped so close she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. I want you to raise our son to be strong. I want you to eat, sleep, and recover from what that bastard put you through. I want you to use the gym, the library, the gardens. I want you to learn Korean if you're interested. I want you to be healthy and happy. That's it. For now. And later. His smile was sharp enough to draw blood. Later, we'll see. You intrigue me, Amara. You did 9 months ago, and you do now. A woman who works 3 jobs to support a man who beats her, yet still has enough fire left to look me in the eye and call this place a cage. He reached out, and she flinched. He paused, then very gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I wonder what you'll become when you're no longer breaking yourself on someone else's indifference. Then he stepped back, the moment breaking. The doctor will be here soon. Haewon will stay with you during the examination. This evening we'll have dinner, just us. No staff. We have much to discuss. He was at the doorway when Amara found her courage. Why, she called after him. Why go through all this? You're rich, powerful, you could have any woman you wanted. Why me? Why my son? Di-young turned, and for the first time, she saw something like vulnerability flicker across his face. Because 9 months ago, a woman I'd never met sat in my hotel room and told me about her life, about how her husband took her paychecks and called it love, how he hit her and called it discipline, how she worked herself to exhaustion and he called her lazy. His jaw tightened. And I thought, this woman deserves better, deserves to know what it's like when someone actually values her. So this is, what, charity? No, it's selfishness. He held her gaze. I want to be the one who shows you what you're worth. I want to watch you realize your own power. And I want our son to grow up seeing his mother treated like the queen she should have been from the beginning. He left before she could respond. Amara sat in the suddenly too quiet kitchen, the baby stirring in his bassinet, and realized with absolute clarity that Di-young Kang was the most dangerous man she'd ever met. Not because he was violent, though he clearly was. Not because he was possessive, though she could already feel the weight of his claim on her. But because part of her, the part that had been beaten down and worked to exhaustion and told she was worthless for 2 years, wanted to believe everything he just said. And that terrified her more than any cage ever could. The doctor was a severe woman in her 40s who examined both Amara and the baby with efficient thoroughness, declared them both healthy but exhausted, and prescribed rest, nutrition, and time. She left a stack of pamphlets about postpartum recovery and infant care, all in Korean with English translations paperclipped to each one. "Mr. Kang is very thorough," the doctor said as she packed her bag. "Everything you could need is already arranged. Use it." After she left, Haewon showed Amara the third floor properly. The library was stunning, floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with books in multiple languages, comfortable reading chairs, a view of Seoul that made the city look like a toy model. The gym had equipment Amara didn't recognize and a floor-to-ceiling mirror that she deliberately avoided looking into. The garden terrace made her stop completely. Someone had created an oasis in the sky, real grass, flowering plants, a small fountain bubbling peacefully, benches positioned to catch the sun. It smelled green and alive, nothing like the concrete and exhaust of her old neighborhood. "Mr. Kang designed this himself," Haewon said. "He doesn't use it often, but he thought you might like it. For the baby, fresh air." Amara sank onto one of the benches, the baby content in her arms, and for the first time in years, she felt something like peace. It lasted exactly until Haewon added, "Dinner is at 7. I'll help you dress." "I can dress myself." "Of course, but Mr. Kang appreciates effort and you'll want to make a good impression." "Why, he's already made up his mind about me." Haewon's smile was knowing. "Oh, honey, he hasn't even started." At 6:45, Amara stood in front of the full-length mirror in her bedroom and barely recognized herself. The dress Haewon had selected was midnight blue, simple but elegant, fitted at the waist and falling to just below her knees. It somehow managed to accommodate her post-pregnancy body while still making her look beautiful. Her hair was pulled back, minimal makeup, small earrings that Haewon insisted were just costume jewelry, but looked suspiciously real. "He's going to devour you with his eyes," Haewon said with satisfaction. "That's supposed to comfort me." "No, it's supposed to prepare you." She handed Amara the baby, now bathed and dressed in a tiny outfit that matched Amara's dress color. "The dining room is on the 4th floor. You'll need to take the elevator. Your access has been updated." Amara's pulse jumped. "I thought I only had access to the 2nd and 3rd floors." "You did until an hour ago. Mr. Kang changed it. He's giving you more freedom. That means he trusts you. Don't make him regret it." The elevator ride to the 4th floor took seconds. The doors opened onto a hallway with only one door, already standing open. Amara stepped through and found herself in a dining room that belonged in a palace. The table could have seated 20 but was set for 2, intimate despite the grand space. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed Seoul at night, the city glittering like scattered stars. Di-young stood by the window, back to her, a glass of something amber in his hand. He changed from the suit into black slacks and a charcoal gray shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal more of the tattoos that covered his forearms. Dragons and flowers in script she couldn't read. "You came," he said without turning. "Did I have a choice?" "Always." Now he turned, and his eyes did exactly what Haewon had predicted, devoured her, slowly, thoroughly. "But I'm pleased you chose to join me." He crossed to her, took the baby with a gentleness that seemed at odds with everything else about him, and carried the infant to a bassinet set up in the corner. Top of the line, of course, equipped with every safety feature imaginable. "He'll sleep through dinner," Di-young said. "Haewon fed him an hour ago. We timed it." "You timed my baby's feeding schedule." "I time everything." He pulled out a chair for her. "Please sit." The meal was served by invisible staff. Courses appeared and disappeared without Amara seeing who brought them. Korean food, but also Western options, as if Di-young wasn't sure what she'd prefer. The consideration should have been sweet. Instead, it felt like surveillance. He watched her eat like he was memorizing every bite. "Tell me about Kojo," he said finally, voice casual, but his knuckles had gone white around his chopsticks. "Why?" Because I want to understand what kind of man makes a woman like you believe she deserves so little. Amara set down her fork. You had his legs broken. I think you understand him fine. I understand what he is. I want to understand what he did to you, how he convinced you to stay. She shouldn't answer, shouldn't give him this window into her pain. But the words came anyway, pulled out by the genuine curiosity in his eyes. He wasn't always bad. In the beginning he was sweet, attentive. He made me feel seen. My father had just died and I was alone and Kojo was there. With flowers and promises, and a future that looked better than the grief I was drowning in. Di-young's expression darkened, but he stayed silent, letting her continue. The first time he hit me was 3 months after the wedding. I'd forgotten to pick up his dry cleaning. He apologized after, cried, said his father used to beat his mother and he'd promised himself he'd never be that man. I believed him. She laughed, bitter. I believed him for 2 years, every apology, every promise to change. When did the financial abuse start? Immediately. He convinced me to put his name on my bank account for emergencies. Then he'd take money for business investments that never materialized. By the end, I was working morning shifts at a coffee shop, afternoons cleaning offices, nights waitressing. He'd take every paycheck and give me just enough for bus fare and 1 meal a day. And you stayed. Where was I supposed to go? My father was dead. My mother had died when I was 12. I had no siblings, no cousins. Kojo isolated me from my friends, said they were bad influences, that they didn't understand our marriage. Amara met Di-young's eyes. You don't understand how it happens. How you wake up one day and realize you're trapped, and the walls closed in so gradually you never noticed until it was too late. Di-young set down his chopsticks with careful precision. I understand more than you think. My father built his empire on breaking people, making them dependent, grateful for scraps. I watched him do it to my mother until she couldn't remember who she'd been before him. What happened to her? She took too many sleeping pills when I was 15. The official report called it an accident. His smile was knife-sharp. I knew better, so did my father. He remarried 6 months later. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me an important lesson. Never make someone feel so trapped they'd rather die than continue living in your world. He leaned forward, eyes intense. That's why I'm giving you floors, Amara, access, freedom within boundaries. I won't be my father, and I won't let you feel about me the way my mother felt about him. But you'll still keep me in a cage. A gilded one, with a door you can open whenever you prove you're ready to handle what's outside. And when will that be? When you stop flinching every time I move too quickly, when you look at me and see a partner instead of a threat, when you understand that I'm not Kojo and I never will be. He reached across the table, palm up, an invitation. I'm a dangerous man, Amara. I've done things that would make you sick. I've hurt people, destroyed lives, built my empire on blood and fear, but I have rules, lines I don't cross. And women who have just given birth to my child don't get locked in rooms and starved and beaten. They get penthouse suites and doctors and every comfort I can provide. Amara stared at his outstretched hand. What do you want from me, Di-young? Tonight, just dinner, conversation, a chance to know the mother of my son beyond a single evening 9 months ago. His hand didn't waver. Tomorrow, we'll see. I'm a patient man when I want to be. Against every instinct screaming at her to maintain distance, Amara placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm, calloused, strong, and she felt the click of a lock she hadn't known was waiting to close. Dinner stretched into hours. Di-young asked questions about her childhood, her dreams before Kojo, what she'd wanted to be when she was young. She'd wanted to be a teacher, she heard herself admit, had been saving for college when her father got sick. You could still do it, Di-young said. Seoul has universities, international programs. You'd need to learn Korean first, but you're smart. You'd pick it up. I have a baby. You have a staff. Haewon would be thrilled to help. She's been with me for 20 years and complains constantly that she's bored. He smiled. Though don't tell her I said that. You'd really let me go to school. Why wouldn't I? An educated mother raises educated children. Our son will need every advantage. Our son. He kept saying it like that, claiming the baby, claiming her by extension. The baby in question woke then, hungry and loud. Amara moved to get him, but Di-young was faster. He lifted the infant with surprising confidence, checked his diaper with practiced efficiency, then brought him to Amara. "You've done this before," she said, settling into a chair to feed him. "I have nephews, they're gone now, killed in a territorial dispute 5 years ago." His expression went cold. The men responsible learned what happens when you touch Kang family, slowly, painfully, over the course of several weeks. Amara should have been horrified. Instead, she felt a dark satisfaction curl in her stomach. This was a man who protected what was his, who avenged wrongs, who wouldn't let anyone hurt his child. Or her. "Is that why you have no other children?" she asked. "Because it's too dangerous." "Partially. Also because I never met a woman I wanted to tie to this life." He watched the baby nurse, something soft in his eyes. "Until a woman in a hallway told me she'd fallen and split her lip, and I knew she was lying, and I wanted to find whoever had hurt her and make them regret they'd ever been born." "You didn't, though, not then." "No, because you asked me not to, said it would make things worse." He met her eyes. "I'm not asking permission this time." Kojo's legs are the least of what he deserves, but they'll suffice for now. He's been warned. If he ever speaks your name again, if he ever sets foot in the same country as you, the next thing broken will be his spine. Di-young's voice was conversational, discussing atrocity like weather. "He believed me. Men who see Min-jun's face usually do." The baby finished eating and Amara burped him, suddenly exhausted. The day had been too much, too many emotions, too many revelations, too much intensity in Di-young's constant attention. He noticed immediately. "You're tired. I'll have Haewon take you to your room." "I can manage." "I know you can. You're the woman who worked 3 jobs while pregnant. You could manage anything." He took the baby again, cradling him naturally. "But you don't have to anymore. That's the point." Haewon appeared as if summoned, and Amara wondered if the older woman had been listening at the door. Probably. In Di-young's world, privacy seemed to be a conditional luxury. "Sleep well," Di-young said as she left. "Tomorrow, I want to show you something." "What?" His smile was mysterious. "A surprise, you'll like it, I think." Amara dreamed of cages that night. Some were made of bars, some of silk, some of promises that sounded like threats. She woke multiple times to feed the baby, and each time she could swear she heard footsteps in the hallway outside her door. Packing, restless. Was Di-young sleeping? Or was he out there, keeping guard like a dragon over treasure? The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she fell back asleep feeling safer than she had in years. Morning came with Haewon's gentle knock. "Mr. Kang would like to see you after breakfast. Casual dress, comfortable shoes." The outfit laid out was designer casual, jeans that fit perfectly, a soft cashmere sweater, sneakers that probably cost more than her old monthly rent. Amara dressed, fed the baby, and found Di-young waiting in the living room. He wore jeans too, and a simple black t-shirt that showed the full extent of his arm tattoos. Dragons and phoenixes and Korean script that wound from wrist to shoulder. He looked younger like this, dangerous in a different way. "Ready?" he asked. "For what?" "You'll see, Haewon will watch the baby. We won't be long." Amara's heart jumped. "I don't want to leave him. He's safe here, safer than anywhere else in Seoul. Min-jun is stationed outside the penthouse, and Haewon has raised 4 children of her own. He's in excellent hands." It still took 10 minutes of Haewon's reassurance before Amara could walk away from her sleeping son. The elevator descended, but not to the ground floor. It stopped at a basement level Amara hadn't known existed. The doors opened onto what looked like a private garage. Luxury cars lined up like trophies. Di-young led her to a sleek black motorcycle, handed her a helmet. "Have you ever ridden before?" "No." "Hold on tight. Lean with me on turns. Trust me to keep you safe." She should have refused, should have demanded to know where they were going. Instead, she climbed on behind him, wrapped her arms around his waist, and felt his muscles tense beneath her touch. The bike roared to life, and they shot out into Seoul morning traffic. Riding behind Di-young was like flying. He moved through the city with absolute confidence, weaving between cars, taking turns that made Amara's stomach flip. She held on tighter, pressed against his back, and felt his hand cover hers briefly. Reassurance. Connection. They rode for 20 minutes, leaving the skyscrapers behind for a quieter neighborhood. The bike slowed, pulled up in front of a building that looked like a school. "What is this?" Amara asked as he helped her off. "Remember you said you wanted to be a teacher." Di-young removed his helmet and his hair was mussed, making him look almost boyish. "This is a private academy. They teach in English and Korean. The director owes me a favor. Several favors, actually." He led her inside, where a severe-looking woman in her 60s greeted them with a bow so deep it was almost comical. "Mr. Kang, an honor." "Director Park, this is Amara. I'd like you to show her your facilities." The tour was stunning. Small classrooms, well-equipped libraries, children who seemed genuinely happy. Director Park explained their teaching philosophy, their need for bilingual staff, their competitive salary. "We have an opening," she said, looking at Amara. "One of our teachers is going on maternity leave in 3 months, if you were interested." "She needs to complete her degree first," Di-young interrupted. "But perhaps she could observe, learn your methods, volunteer a few hours a week once the baby is older." Director Park's eyes lit up. "That would be wonderful. We'd be honored." On the ride back, Amara's mind spun. "You're bribing me." "I'm showing you possibilities." Di-young's voice carried over the engine noise. "You wanted to be a teacher. I can make that happen. It doesn't erase the cage, but it gives you something to do inside it besides stare at the walls." "And what do you get out of it?" "A content mother for my son, a woman who might eventually stop looking at me like I'm her warden." He pulled the bike into the garage, killed the engine. "I'm not a good man, Amara, but I take care of what's mine. And whether you like it or not, you're mine now. So I'm going to make sure you have everything you need to thrive, even if it takes years." Years, the word settled over her like a weighted blanket. He was thinking in years, long-term, permanent. "What if I want to leave?" she asked quietly. Di-young removed his helmet, turned to face her fully. "Then you leave. I won't stop you, but know this, the moment you step outside my protection, you're vulnerable. Kojo might be neutralized, but I have enemies. Men who'd love to hurt me by hurting you, by taking our son." His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "So if you leave, you do it knowing you're choosing danger over safety, freedom over security, and I'll respect that choice, even as it destroys me to watch you walk away." "You barely know me. How can you?" "I know enough. I know you're strong enough to work 3 jobs while pregnant, smart enough to survive 2 years with an abuser, brave enough to look me in the eye and call me out, and stubborn enough that when I tell you the penthouse is yours, you'll eventually believe it." He leaned closer, breath warm against her lips. "I know that 9 months ago, you made me feel something I thought I'd buried with my mother. Hope. That maybe not all women are broken by powerful men. That maybe with the right man, a woman can flourish instead of wilt. And you think you're the right man. I think I'm the only man who'll ever value you enough to try." He kissed her then, soft, questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Amara didn't pull away. She kissed him back, and it felt like falling and flying simultaneously. His hands tangled in her hair. Hers gripped his shoulders, and for a moment there was nothing but heat and want, and the terrifying realization that she could want this man. Want this dangerous, controlling, impossibly complicated man who'd rescued her son and broken her husband's legs, and offered her a teaching career in the same breath. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Di-young rested his forehead against hers. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. "Tell me you need time, space, boundaries. I'll listen. I swear I'll listen. I don't know what I need. Then we'll figure it out together, slowly, at your pace." He pulled back, eyes dark with want but also something softer, patience. I've waited 60 years to feel this way about someone. I can wait a little longer for you to catch up. They rode the elevator back to the penthouse in charged silence. Amara's lips still tingled. Her heart still raced. And some part of her, the part that had been dead for 2 years, was waking up and screaming that this was dangerous, that she was substituting one controlling man for another. But another part, quieter but growing stronger, whispered that there was a difference between a man who locked you up to diminish you and a man who locked you up to keep the world from destroying you. The question was, which kind was De-young really? The next 3 weeks fell into a rhythm Amara hadn't known was possible. Her days revolved around the baby, feeding, changing, the sweet exhaustion of new motherhood. But Haewon was always there, offering to take him for a few hours so Amara could shower, nap, read. The library became her sanctuary. She devoured books on Korean culture, started working through a language learning program De-young had left for her. He'd appear at random times, lunch, late evening, once at 2 a.m. when she was feeding the baby, and they'd talk. About everything. His childhood in Seoul's underground, her dreams of teaching, his dead mother and her absent one, the empire he'd built from blood and brutality, the life she'd endured with Kojo. He never pushed for more than conversation, never tried to kiss her again, just talked, like they had 9 months ago in his hotel room when she'd been a stranger crying over a split lip. But his eyes spoke volumes, want, possession, restraint. On the 22nd day, Amara woke to find an envelope slipped under her door. Inside, a single card in elegant script. You have access to all 7 floors now. Explore at your leisure. The 7th floor is my private space, but you're welcome there anytime. DK. Her hands shook as she fed the baby, dressed, and took the elevator to the 7th floor. The doors opened onto something between a home and a fortress. The entire floor was De-young's bedroom suite, and it was stunning. Minimalist but warm, all dark woods and soft lighting. A bed large enough for 4 people. Windows that showed Seoul sprawling in every direction. And weapons displayed like art on the walls. Swords, knives, guns in glass cases. I wondered when you'd come up here. Amara spun to find De-young emerging from what looked like a walk-in closet, wearing only sleep pants, his torso a canvas of more tattoos. A massive phoenix spread across his chest, its wings reaching toward his shoulders. I got your note, she said, trying not to stare. And you decided to explore, good. I was beginning to think you'd stay on the 2nd floor forever out of spite. He crossed to a small kitchenette in the corner, started making coffee. Want some? It's 7 in the morning. I've been awake since 4. Some of us don't sleep well. He poured 2 cups, handed her one. How's the baby? Asleep. Haewon has him. She said I should. Take some time for myself. Smart woman. What do you want to do with this time? Amara set down her coffee cup. Ask you something. Anything. Why me? Really? You said I intrigued you, but powerful men don't reorganize their entire lives around intrigue. They have affairs and move on. So why am I living in your penthouse? Why is my son being treated like royalty? What do you actually want from me? De-young was quiet for a long moment, watching her over his coffee cup. Then he set it down and crossed the space between them. You want the truth, the whole truth? Yes. I'm obsessed with you. The words were flat, matter of fact. Have been since that night. I've had investigators keeping tabs on you since you left. I knew about every shift you worked, every bill you couldn't pay, every time Kojo raised his hand to you. I could have intervened sooner, but I was waiting. For what? For you to be pregnant. For there to be undeniable proof that you were mine in some way. For an excuse to justify tearing you out of that life and putting you somewhere I could see you, protect you, own you. His hand came up, fingers ghosting along her jaw. I'm not a good man, Amara. I told you that. A good man would have helped you escape Kojo and sent you on your way. I orchestrated a rescue so dramatic you'd have no choice but to depend on me. I'm keeping you in luxury so you'll forget what it's like to struggle. I'm giving you everything you could want so that eventually you'll want to stay. Amara's heart hammered. That's manipulation, control, obsession. He didn't look away. Yes, all of those things, but it's also protection, security, a future for our son where he'll never know poverty or abuse or fear. And maybe if I'm patient enough, it could be love, real love. The kind where you choose to stay not because you're trapped, but because you can't imagine being anywhere else. You can't force someone to love you. No, but I can create conditions where love becomes possible, where you're safe enough to heal, strong enough to choose. And when you finally look at me and see a partner instead of a captor, his thumb brushed her lower lip. That will be worth every moment of waiting. Amara should have stepped back, should have told him this was madness. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "What if I never get there? What if I always see the cage? Then I'll have failed and I'll live with that failure for the rest of my life. But I won't force you to stay. When you're ready to leave, truly ready, not running from fear, I'll open the door myself." His eyes burned. "I want you, Amara, but I want you willing, choosing me, wanting me back. Anything less isn't worth having." That's the most romantic and terrifying thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm a romantic and terrifying man. He stepped back, breaking the moment. "Now you came up here for a reason beyond interrogating me. What do you want to see? My weapon collection, the panic room, your bed." The words hung in the air between them. Di-young went very still. "Amara, I haven't stopped thinking about that kiss, about how you touch me like I'm precious, about how you look at me like you're memorizing every detail." She moved closer, heart racing. "I'm not saying I love you. I'm not saying I'll stay forever, but I'm saying I want something, connection, to feel wanted by someone who actually sees me. You just had a baby 3 weeks ago. We shouldn't. I know what I can and can't do with my body, and I'm not talking about sex." She reached out, placed her hand on his bare chest, felt his heart thundering beneath her palm. "I'm talking about being held, touched, reminded that I'm more than a mother and a victim." Di-young's hand covered hers, pressing it against his heart. "If we go down this path, I know you'll want more, you'll push boundaries, you'll try to make me yours in every way." She looked up at him. "But maybe I want to be wanted that much, even if it scares me, even if I don't know where it leads." He kissed her then, deeper than before, urgent but controlled. His hand slid into her hair, angled her head, and Amara stopped thinking and just felt the heat of him, the barely leashed want, the careful way he touched her like she might shatter. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "The bed," he said, voice rough. "If we're going to do this, we do it right, comfortable, safe." He led her to the massive bed, pulled back the covers, and they lay down facing each other. Di-young gathered her close, one arm beneath her head, the other around her waist, just holding her, nothing more. "Tell me about the baby," he said softly. "What's he like? What does he do?" And Amara talked about how the baby smiled in his sleep, how he gripped her finger with surprising strength, how he had Di-young's stubbornness already, fighting sleep like an enemy. "We need to name him," Di-young said. "He can't be the baby forever." "Do you have ideas?" In Korean tradition, names are chosen carefully. They carry meaning, power. His fingers traced patterns on her back. "I was thinking, Jinho, it means precious treasure or brave and powerful." "Yes." "Jinho," Amara repeated, tasting it. "I like it, but also, maybe a middle name, something from my culture." "Whatever you want. He's ours, both of us. 2 cultures, 2 languages, 2 worlds coming together." They lay there for over an hour, talking and dozing and simply existing in the same space. Amara felt herself relaxing in increments, her body trusting what her mind still questioned. When she finally left to check on the baby, Di-young walked her to the elevator. "Thank you," he said, "for trusting me with this, for not running. I'm not promising to stay forever. I know, but you're not running today, that's enough." The elevator doors closed on his face, intense, wanting, patient, and Amara leaned against the wall, wondering what the hell she was doing. Falling for her captor, developing Stockholm Syndrome, making the worst decision of her life. Or maybe, just maybe, learning that not all cages were prisons, that some were sanctuaries. And the man holding the key might actually be offering freedom instead of bondage, if only she was brave enough to believe it. 3 days later, everything changed. Amara was in the nursery with Jinho. The name had stuck immediately, feeling right in a way nothing else had, when Haewon burst in, face pale. "We need to move you, now both of you." "What's wrong?" "Kojo, he's in Seoul, with people, dangerous people, they're coming here." Amara's blood turned to ice. "How? You said he was neutralized." "He was supposed to be in the hospital for another month. Someone paid for his early release. Someone who wants to hurt Mr. Kang." Haewon was already grabbing a bag, throwing in baby supplies with shaking hands. "Minjun is sealing the building, but if they breach, we need to get you to the panic room." "Where's D-Young?" "Handling it. He said not to worry, that everything's under control, but..." Haewon's voice cracked. "Please, just come with me." The panic room was on the 5th floor, hidden behind a bookshelf that swung open to reveal reinforced steel. Inside was a small apartment, bed, bathroom, supplies for weeks, a wall of monitors showing every angle of the building. On one screen, Amara saw them. Kojo limping but mobile, his legs clearly healed enough to function, and with him, 6 men carrying weapons that made Amara's stomach clench. They were in the lobby, arguing with security. On another screen, D-Young appeared, stepping out of the elevator onto the ground floor. He was unarmed, wearing a suit, looking like he was heading to a business meeting instead of a confrontation. "No," Amara whispered. "He can't, there's too many." "He knows what he's doing," Haewon said, but she sounded uncertain. On the screen, Kojo saw D-Young and his face twisted with rage. You think you can steal my wife, my son. You think your money makes you untouchable." D-Young's smile was cold enough to freeze blood. "I think you should have stayed in the hospital, Kojo. You healing early is inconvenient, but not unexpected." "I'm taking them back. Amara and the baby, they're mine." "They were never yours, you just hadn't realized it yet." D-Young took a step forward and every man with Kojo tensed. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave Seoul, tonight, and you're going to spend the rest of your life knowing that your wife chose me, that your son will call me father, that everything you had is now mine because you were too stupid to value it." Kojo raised his gun. Amara screamed, but the panic room was soundproof. The shot echoed through the lobby. But D-Young was already moving, faster than a 60-year-old man should be able to move. The bullet hit marble where he'd been standing, and then Min-jun and a dozen other men poured out of hidden positions, weapons drawn, surrounding Kojo and his group. The fight was brutal and brief. Kojo's men were street thugs. D-Young's were trained killers. Within 90 seconds, every one of Kojo's companions was on the ground, bleeding or unconscious or dead. Kojo himself was on his knees, Min-jun's gun pressed to the back of his head. D-Young approached slowly, and even through the monitor, Amara could see the rage on his face. "You shot at me," D-Young said conversationally. "In my building at me, that's remarkably stupid, Kojo." "Fuck you, you're not keeping them, I'll kill you, I'll kill." D-Young's fist connected with Kojo's just so hard Amara heard the crack through the speakers. Kojo dropped, blood streaming from his mouth. "You'll do nothing. You're finished. Done. I was going to let you live, let you rot somewhere in poverty, but you couldn't even give me that courtesy." D-Young crouched down, grabbed Kojo's hair, forced him to look up. "You know what happens to men who threaten my family." "She's not your family." "She is the mother of my son. That makes her more my family than you'll ever understand. And you..." D-Young's voice dropped to something deadly. "You put your hands on her, made her work herself to exhaustion, called her worthless. You damaged something precious and now you'll pay for it." "You're going to kill me." "No, death is too quick, too merciful." D-Young released him, stood. "Min-jun, make sure he lives, but make sure he never forgets what happens when you touch what belongs to me." Min-jun smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Amara had ever seen. The screen went dark, someone had cut the feed, but Amara could imagine what was happening. Could imagine Kojo's screams. Could imagine. Don't, Haewon said softly, turning her away from the monitors. Don't think about it. He made his choice. Now he lives with the consequences. This is my fault, if I hadn't. If you hadn't what? Survived, found someone who valued you, had a baby. Haewon's hands were firm on her shoulders. You did nothing wrong. Kojo did. And now he's learning that some men don't let go of what's theirs, ever. 20 minutes later, the panic room door opened. Di-young stood there, still in his suit, not a hair out of place. But there was blood on his knuckles. It's done, he said quietly. He's being taken to a shipping container headed for a work camp in Russia. He'll spend the next 20 years doing hard labor, if he survives. Most don't. Amara should have felt horror, guilt, something other than the fierce satisfaction that burned through her. Good, she heard herself say. He deserves worse. Di-young's eyes softened. Yes, he does, but this will suffice. He entered the panic room, came straight to her, cupped her face in his bloodied hands. I'm sorry you had to see that, see what I am, what I'm capable of. You protected us. I destroyed a man. A man who wanted to destroy me, to hurt our son. Amara leaned into his touch. I'm not afraid of what you did, I'm grateful. Is that wrong? No, he kissed her forehead. It's human, it's honest, and it's exactly what I hoped you'd feel, which probably makes me a monster. Then we're both monsters, because I'm glad he's suffering. Glad he'll never touch me again. Glad you're the kind of man who makes people pay for hurting those under his protection. Di-young pulled her close, and Amara let herself be held. Let herself feel safe in the arms of a dangerous man. Let herself accept that maybe, just maybe, she'd found exactly what she needed. Not a savior, not a hero, but a man brutal enough to keep the wolves at bay, and gentle enough to hold her while she healed. That night, Amara put Jinho to bed and went looking for Di-young. She found him on the 7th floor, standing at the windows, looking out at Seoul like a king surveying his kingdom. Can't sleep, she asked. Never can, not after, situations. He didn't turn, you should rest, today was traumatic. Today was clarifying. Amara crossed the space between them, slid her arms around his waist from behind. I understand now, what you are, what we are. And what are we? You're a man who burns the world to keep his family warm, and I'm a woman who's tired of being cold. She rested her cheek against his back. I'm staying, Di-young, not because I'm trapped, not because I have nowhere else to go, but because I choose this. Choose you. Choose the safety and the brutality and the impossible luxury of being valued. He turned in her arms, eyes searching hers. You mean that? I mean it. Maybe I'll regret it someday. Maybe this is Stockholm Syndrome or trauma bonding or any of the other things a therapist would probably diagnose. But right now, in this moment, I'm choosing to believe that the man who rescued my son and destroyed my abuser actually wants what's best for me. I do, I swear I do. Then kiss me like you mean it, like I'm not broken, like I'm choosing you because I want to, not because I'm too damaged to know better. Di-young kissed her, and it was different from before, harder, more certain. A claiming instead of a question. When they broke apart, he was smiling. Move up here to the 7th floor, you and Jinho, I want you close. That's moving fast. I'm 60 years old, I don't have time to move slow. His thumb traced her lower lip. Besides, you've already decided, I can see it in your eyes. He was right, she had decided. Somewhere between the rescue and the revenge, between the luxury and the limits, she'd stopped seeing him as her captor and started seeing him as something else. Partner, protector, possibly eventually love. Okay, she whispered. We'll move up here, but I want my own space within your space, a place that's just mine and Jinho's. Done, I'll have the 6th floor converted, connected to the 7th but separate, your sanctuary within my world. And I want to start at the school, learning to teach, building something that's mine. Absolutely, I'll arrange it. And I want, she hesitated, I want you to be honest with me, always, about what you do, who you are, what your world entails. No more surprises like today. Di-young's expression grew serious. That's asking a lot. My world is dark, Amara. Violent. You'll see and hear things that will keep you awake at night. I've been kept awake for 2 years by the sound of my husband's footsteps, wondering if tonight was the night he'd go too far. I think I can handle knowing the truth about a man who's actually on my side. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, honesty, complete transparency, but in exchange, I want the same from you. Your fears, your doubts, the moments when this feels like too much. I want to know when you're struggling so I can help, not discover it when you're already breaking. Deal. They shook hands like business partners, and then both laughed at the absurdity of it. Sealing a relationship built on rescue and revenge with a handshake. Come to bed, Di-young said, pulling her toward the massive bed she'd laid in weeks ago. Not for sex, just to sleep. I want to wake up with you next to me. Jin-ho has monitors in every room, and Haewon's sleeping 2 doors down from the nursery. He's fine. You're allowed to rest without keeping one ear open for danger. It felt strange, sliding into bed beside him. Strange and right. His arm came around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong. Thank you, she whispered into the darkness. For what? For seeing me, that night 9 months ago. For not walking past the crying woman in the hallway. For being arrogant enough to think you could fix my life. I didn't fix it. I just gave you the space to fix it yourself. Semantics. She laced her fingers through his. Either way, thank you. For Jin-ho, for this ridiculous penthouse, for breaking Kojo's legs and sending him to Russia, for being exactly the kind of dangerous I needed. Di-young kissed her shoulder. Sleep, Amara. Tomorrow we start building something real. Not just a cage with gilded bars, but an actual partnership. It'll take time. I'll mess up. You'll doubt, but we'll figure it out. You sound very sure. I am, because I've spent 60 years building an empire on uncertainty and risk. This, you, Jin-ho, this family we're creating, is the surest thing I've ever known. Amara closed her eyes, let exhaustion finally claim her, and for the first time since she was a teenager, she fell asleep feeling safe. Truly, completely safe. Not because there were no threats. Di-young's world would always have threats. But because she'd finally found someone who considered her worth defending. Worth keeping. Worth everything. 6 weeks later, Amara stood in the academy director Park had shown her, holding Jin-ho while a group of 5-year-olds practiced their English alphabet. She was officially a teaching assistant now, working 3 mornings a week while Haewon watched the baby. Di-young had been right, she was good at this. The children loved her and she loved them right back. She'd moved to the 6th floor 2 weeks ago. True to his word, Di-young had converted it into a space that was entirely hers, decorated to her taste, filled with books and plants and soft furniture that invited comfort. Jin-ho's nursery was there, connected to her bedroom by a door she could leave open or closed. But most nights, she ended up on the 7th floor anyway. In Di-young's bed, in his arms. They still hadn't had sex, her body wasn't ready, and he was patient in a way that surprised her. But they did everything else. Kissed until her lips were swollen, touched until they were both shaking, talked until dawn about dreams and fears and the future they were building. He'd been honest just as promised, told her about the businesses he ran, legitimate and otherwise. The protection rackets, the gambling operations, the politicians in his pocket, the violence required to maintain his position. She'd listened, asked questions, and never once asked him to stop. Because she understood now. In Di-young's world, violence was survival, brutality was protection, and the man who could be ruthless to his enemies could also be impossibly gentle with his family. Miss Amara, one of the children, tugged her sleeve. Is that your baby? Yes, this is Jin-ho. He's so cute. Is he Korean? He's both Korean and African, the best of both worlds. The little girl considered this, like you and Mr. Kang. Amara's heart skipped. What do you know about Mr. Kang? My daddy says he's very important. That we're lucky you work here because Mr. Kang must really like our school. Out of the mouths of babes. Yes, Amara said softly. Mr. Kang really likes your school. After class, she found Di-young waiting outside in the car. He did this sometimes, showed up unannounced, wanting to drive her home, wanting those few extra minutes together. How was it? He asked as she buckled Jinho into the car seat he'd installed. Perfect. The kids are wonderful. Director Park says I have a natural talent for this. Of course you do, I knew you would. He pulled into traffic, one hand on the wheel, the other reaching over to rest on her thigh. I have news. The university accepted your application. You start next semester. Full scholarship, of course. Di-young. Don't argue. It's already done. You'll study education, get your degree, and then you can teach properly. Not as a favor to me, but because you've earned it. Amara looked at him. This impossible man who broke bones and funded scholarships with equal ease, and felt something crack open in her chest. I love you, she said. The car swerved slightly. Di-young recovered, pulled over to the side of the road, and turned to stare at her. What did you say? I love you. I've been fighting it for weeks, telling myself it's too soon, that I'm confused, that this is just gratitude or fear or survival instinct. But it's not. It's love. Messy, complicated, probably inadvisable love, but love nonetheless. Di-young's hand trembled as he cupped her face. You're sure? I'm terrified, but I'm sure. He kissed her then, deep and claiming, and Amara kissed him back with everything she had. When they broke apart, there were tears on his face. I've loved you since that first night, he whispered. Watched you cry over a man who didn't deserve you and thought, this woman deserves the world. And I was arrogant enough to believe I could give it to her. You did give it to me. Safety, security, a future for our son, a chance to be more than a victim. Amara wiped his tears away. You gave me myself back. How could I not love you for that? This isn't Stockholm Syndrome. You're not just. Maybe it started that way. Maybe it's still tangled up with trauma and rescue and all the messy psychology of our situation. But I don't care. I choose this. I choose you. Every day I'll keep choosing you until the day I don't. And if that day comes, you promised you'd let me go. I did promise that, and I meant it. He kissed her again, softer. But I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that day never comes. Jinho made a sound from the back seat, and they both laughed. We should get him home, Amara said. Home, I like the sound of that. Di-young pulled back into traffic, and his smile was the most genuine she'd ever seen. Our home, our family, our life. Our imperfect, complicated, possibly dysfunctional, but somehow perfect life, Amara corrected. Exactly. That night, after Jinho was asleep and the penthouse was quiet, Amara and Di-young lay in his bed, wrapped around each other. Tell me about the future, she said. What do you see for us? Honestly, always. I see you graduating with honors, teaching at the academy, maybe running it someday if Director Park ever retires. I see Jinho growing up bilingual, brilliant, strong. Taking over my legitimate businesses, while I slowly transition away from the darker aspects of my empire. You'd really do that, leave the criminal side behind. For you, for him, yes. It'll take years, but I'm building an exit strategy, legal businesses to transition into, alliances to maintain the peace while I step back. He kissed her temple. I've done enough violence for one lifetime. I'd like to spend my remaining years watching my son grow up and spoiling the woman I love. That sounds impossibly domestic. I know, strange, isn't it? 60 years of blood and brutality, and all I want now is normalcy. Breakfast with my family, teaching Jinho to ride a bike, watching you shine in your career, growing old beside someone who actually chose me. Amara's throat tightened. I did choose you, I do choose you. I know, and that means more to me than every empire I've ever built. They made love that night for the first time. Slow, careful, Di-young worshipping every inch of her body like she was sacred. Afterward, she cried, from pleasure, from relief, from the overwhelming realization that this was her life now. Safety, love, a dangerous man who gentled himself for her and her alone. No regrets, Di-young asked, holding her close. Not a single one. Even knowing what I am, what I've done. Especially knowing that, because you're honest about it, you don't pretend to be a hero. You're just. You, brutal when needed, gentle when possible, and completely devoted to protecting what's yours. And you're mine. I'm yours, but you're also mine. That's how this works, right? Mutual possession. He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. Yes, mutual possession, I like that. Amara drifted towards sleep, safe and sated and loved. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 months ago, desperate, abused, alone. She thought about the terrifying moment the baby was born Asian and her world imploded. And she thought about how sometimes the worst moment of your life could lead directly to the best. Sometimes the cage that trapped you was actually the sanctuary that saved you. Sometimes the dangerous man was exactly what you needed. Not because he tamed you, but because he gave you space to become wild again, to remember who you were before someone tried to break you, to build something new from the ashes of who you used to be. Thank you, she whispered against Di-young's chest. For what? For being patient, for not forcing me, for letting me come to you in my own time. Always, he promised. I'll always give you time, space, freedom within our world, because loving someone isn't about owning them. It's about creating a space where they can thrive. You sound like a philosopher. I sound like a man who watched his father love his mother to death and swore he'd never repeat that mistake. His arms tightened around her. You're not my possession, Amara. You're my partner, my equal, the mother of my child and the woman I love. That means your happiness matters as much as mine, maybe more. Not more, equal. Equal, he agreed, always equal. And in the darkness of a Seoul penthouse, wrapped in the arms of a reformed mob boss, Amara finally let herself believe in happy endings. Not the fairy tale kind, where the prince was perfect and the castle had no shadows. But the real kind, where two broken people found each other and decided that broken together was better than whole apart. Where love wasn't about rescue, but about choice. Where the cage became a home because the person holding the key loved you enough to hand it over whenever you asked. If you enjoyed Amara and Di-young's story, this is just part 1. In part 2, we'll see what happens when Kojo escapes from the Russian work camp with one goal: revenge. We'll watch Di-young protect his family at all costs. We'll see Amara step into her power and prove she's not just a damsel anymore. She's a queen who will fight for what's hers. Subscribe so you don't miss part 2, where the stakes get even higher and Amara learns that loving a dangerous man means becoming dangerous yourself. Drop a comment telling me what you think will happen next, and hit that like button if you want to see this story continue. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most dangerous love is the one worth fighting for.